In Italy, most of the things are still done in cash. From paying your dentist, I'm not kidding you guys. A dentist will say, this is how much you'll pay if you pay in credit card, and this is how much you'll pay in cash. So they all encourage you to pay in cash, of course, because it's less. Even cashiers at the grocery store sometimes would yell, is anyone paying with a credit card? Because you would have this huge line of people prepared to pay in cash, and they would have all this terminals empty, terminals where they only accept credit cards. Fabulous people, welcome to the podcast for all the babes who create their own life trends. My name is Anastasia, and this podcast is all about inspiring you to relentlessly pursue your biggest dreams and live your most authentic, abundant life. Well, as you can tell from my environment, for those of you who are watching this podcast, I'm not at my usual place, and I'm also not at my usual country. And that is the goal for this podcast, because I want to take you to different places with me as I travel throughout this world, and of course, Italy and Greece in particular. I want to be able to do these podcast episodes from all the different locations. So thank you so much for traveling together with me. But today I'm actually in the US, and the moment my plane landed, let me tell you, a wave of a culture shock just hit me. Everything is different. The way people move, eat, shop, deal with bureaucracy. Some things I missed so much, others not so much. So today I wanted to dive into the topic of 7 biggest differences between living in Italy and in the US. And for those of you who are new to my podcast and my channel, and you don't know my background, I actually spent about 15 years living in the United States and about a decade in Italy. I am a proud American citizen, despite my accent, who just happened to fall in love with Italy and make it my home. So everything I'm going to share with you today is based on my personal observations. And of course, if you have your own stories to share, or maybe you don't agree with certain things I'm going to say today, then of course, please feel free to leave me a comment down below, share your opinion, your story. I always appreciate other people's opinions, feedback, and that's about it. Let's get started. So, the moment your plane lands in the US, you know that every single tiny detail is organized and structured. There are hundreds of signs that show you where to go, step-by-step instructions, clear lanes, so many people who are directing you and telling you which papers you should prepare. And I love this structure so much. But I don't know if this is just me. With this type of structure, almost always comes this underlying feeling of anxiety, because you know that you need to focus and follow the rules and get everything right. Now, it is very different when you arrive to Italy, because as soon as you exit the plane, you start improvising. You just follow the crowd because there are not that many signs of where to go or what's coming up next. And even when you approach the immigration officer, because I flew, I don't even know how many times back and forth between United States and Italy. Most of the time, they just ask you ahead of time to open your passport. So they don't even look at you. They just put a stamp in your passport, and without asking one single question, then they just let you go. Which is so opposite to the entire process in the United States. And after traveling for decades to so many different countries, I came to the conclusion that the way things are run at their airport gives you a really good idea of what to expect in the country you're about to visit. And of course, Italy and US is not an exception. You guys can tell I'm in New York based on the background noise. You guys know New York never sleeps, so let's just take it as a soundtrack, as a background soundtrack to this episode. So yes, the way things are run at the airport is a great sneak peek of what's to come. And so, to no surprise, when you want to get anything done in Italy, especially if it's something serious like opening a bank account or getting your permesso di soggiorno or opening a business, there are honestly no clear ways of how it's done. And you improvising and figuring out as you go. Every single tiny thing that you need to get done in Italy requires a lot of patience, luck, and a lot of times knowing someone. US is a complete opposite when it comes to that. Even though it's still bureaucratic, it is way faster to get things done in the US and way more efficient. When I needed to renew my US passport and I went to the American embassy in Italy, I was almost getting emotional, guys, of just the entire process because it was so straightforward, so easy, effortless, clear. I can just keep sitting here and coming up with new and new words of how amazed I was by the entire process. And after I was done, I shared my experience with my Italian friends, and they just couldn't believe it. Because in Italy, if you want to have this kind of process, you definitely need to know someone. For example, I know an Italian couple who needed to renew their Italian passports. So they went to the Questura, it's the place where you do a lot of administrative things. And they submitted their documents and they were told, yeah, just go for lunch. They went for lunch, they came back, and their passports were ready. That is the power of knowing someone in Italy. And in all this chaos, Italians became very good at improvising and finding solutions. They will find a parking spot where there's literally nowhere to park. They will get themselves into a fully booked restaurant and they will figure out anything that needs to be done with the help of someone that they know. And again, it's a complete opposite to the United States because in the US, rules are rules. You either qualify for something or you don't qualify for something. You are not going to call your cousin's friend's uncle to get something done. It does not exist here. And that is one of the biggest fundamental differences between being and living in the US and being and living in Italy. The other thing that I think is so strikingly, that is the word, strikingly different, is the job situation. As soon as I arrive to the United States, I almost smell, not almost, I smell the ambition in the air. People move faster, work harder. I know some Italians are going to give me grief for this right now. And they just constantly strive for the next level. And of course, this whole environment, it makes you move. It makes you want to do more things, achieve more. We are a country of hustlers, and it's true, guys. And I love this so much about US because there are not that many countries in the world where you literally can have nothing and build yourself from the ground up and pretty much have anything that you desire. Many, many years ago, I came to the US by myself. And because of my hard work and dedication to my goals, I was able to build a very successful career for myself. There are not that many countries in the world where you can do the same thing. And that's what I admire. That is the word. I admire this about the United States, is that it gives opportunities to everyone. But of course, it comes at a cost. For example, I read latest statistics, and 77 of US workers reported work-related stress in the past months. And half of them were thinking about quitting their job due to a full burnout. Now, it's completely different situation in Italy. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to find a job in Italy. And even if you do, your pay is not going to be high, especially if you're young, especially if you're just starting at your career. And of course, some of you might say, yes, but it's the same in the US. Trust me, guys. It's different. It's very different. And again, the whole culture revolves around knowing someone. For example, I know a family where a father is a banker at a very big bank, European bank. And he hired all of his sons to work with him. And when he is going to retire, he is given his entire portfolio book to his sons. I know it's unheard of in the United States, but in Italy, things are still done this way. It's all about whom you know. That is the quickest, easiest, and most of the time only ways to find a good job in Italy. So if you are an Italian and you have big ambitions, but you don't have any connections in Italy, then you go to Germany, France, United States, Canada, etc. Another thing that is so fundamentally different about having a job in the United States and in Italy is that in Italy, the whole work culture actually revolves around your life and not the other way around. There are actually laws in Italy preventing you from working overtime. So taking vacations in Italy is not only encouraged, it is actually expected. And same goes for example, working on Sundays. In Italy, unless you are in hospitality or retail, it is unheard of There are no Italians that are going to open their laptops on Sunday just to jumpstart on a week ahead or just to check their emails or start getting things done for work. It's never going to happen. It's completely different way of approaching life work balance. And I think one of the biggest differences between how young Americans and young Italians view work and success, and that is something that was so surprising to me when I first moved to Italy, is that in the United States, we are inspired by entrepreneurship, side hustles, work promotions, whereas in Italy, most people dream about stable job with indefinite contract. And what I learned is that indefinite contract, and that goes for a lot of European countries, is a contract that gives you stability at your workplace. Pretty much it makes it very, very difficult for your boss to fire you. It also gives you excellent benefits, lots of vacation days, etc., etc. So while we in the United States praise entrepreneurship, love side hustles, inspired to climb corporate ladder, in a lot of European countries, you are inspired by stability and indefinite contracts and great benefits. And I can talk on this subject for a long, long time because this topic in particular always fascinated me. But I think the main difference why not so many Italians, and again, Europeans in general, Europe is huge. Of course, every country is completely different. But in a lot of European countries, let's put it that way, people are not inspired to become entrepreneurs is because the taxes, business taxes in a lot of European countries, including Italy, France, are extremely high and regulations are extremely rigid. So you're really not that inspired so much to be entrepreneur in Europe and given half of what you make to the government. It doesn't sound very inspiring, at least to a lot of Europeans. So, of course, you are more inspired by stability, by great benefits, lots of vacation days, etc., etc. Another big difference that I noticed as soon as I arrived to the United States is how cashless the country became, especially throughout the years. As of 2024, only 16% of all the transactions in the United States were done in cash. Whereas in Italy, it's a completely different situation. In Italy, cash is still king. And if you go to a lot of small businesses, you will see that a lot of times they will say, I'm so sorry, we do not take a credit card or a debit card because our machine is broken. And even though it is illegal to do that in Italy, they still do it. And it was so interesting because when we arrived at JFK this time and went to my parents' place, when we arrived, the cab driver asked me, would you like to pay with a card or in cash? And of course, me living in Italy for so many years, I was prepared for him to say that he does not accept cards because his card reader is broken. And I was already prepared to start arguing. To my surprise, he said, of course, no problem. Credit card it is. I made the payment, exited the car, and almost loved how Italian I became throughout the years. In Italy, most of the things are still done in cash. From paying your dentist, I'm not kidding you guys. A dentist will say, this is how much you'll pay if you pay in credit card, and this is how much you'll pay in cash. So they all encourage you to pay in cash, of course, because it's less. Even cashiers at the grocery store sometimes would yell, is anyone paying with a credit card? Because you would have this huge line of people prepared to pay in cash, and they would have all this terminals, empty terminals where they only accept credit cards. So, needless to say, in Italy, cash is a still preferred method of payment. And a lot of people say because it's a tradition. A lot of people say that it is because, of course, of the taxes. So who knows what it is, but Italy is not changing anytime soon, guys, when it comes to accepting cash payments. I can guarantee you that. Of course, another huge difference is the food culture. And because so many Americans have such busy schedules, the entire system is centered around accommodating that. Takeouts, quick bites, meals that can be ready in an instant. A few days ago, I went to a grocery store and I was so surprised because I already forgot what it's like being in the US grocery store because I haven't been back home in over a year. What was so surprising to me is how everything had such a bright color. Cakes were bright red, salmon was neon orange. Everything was there to kind of catch your attention. In the United States, when you go grocery shopping, it's mainly for a week. In Italy, it is a daily ritual because you go to a butcher, you get fresh meat, then you go to another place to get your bread, then you stop at the fresh market to get fresh fruits and vegetables. It truly is a ritual in Italy. And Italians take a lot of pleasure in it because not only they buy fresh produce, they also enjoy these connections that they have with their local butcher or with the lady who sells fruits and vegetables. They stop, they talk, they share recipes. It truly is a ritual for Italians. And also the grocery store differences are striking, how things are operating inside the grocery stores. For example, in Italy, you have to bag your own food. The cashier is there just to take your card or cash, give you the receipt, and that is about it. Of course, at certain supermarkets, they scan your products, but no one is going to bag things for you. Also, no one is going to weigh your fruits and veggies. You have to weigh them yourself and then put a sticker with the price, and then the cashier just scans that sticker. So, of course, even there are so many differences when it comes to food shopping and then, of course, enjoying your food, because in Italy, as you guys know, those of you who travel to Italy, the whole food consumption is focused around long meals with your family where you meet, you talk for hours, you enjoy different dishes, where in the United States, a lot of it is about speed because we have so many things to do. We're busy. We don't have time for 3-hour lunches. And then, of course, there are so many small things that I notice every time I come to the United States. For example, you guys know in Italy, everything is very small. Small streets, small grocery stores, small apartments. And so personal space does not really exist in Italy. Everyone is kind of on top of each other, and even when you feel like someone is standing very, very close to you, they don't feel it this way. It's a very different culture. And what was so surprising to me, because I forget, guys, I spend so much time in Italy, I forget. When I was in the grocery store and the lady passed by me, she didn't even touch me. And she still said, "I'm sorry," because in her mind, she was very close to me, which after Italy, for me, it felt like she was miles away. And in Italy, this would never happen. Even if someone bumps into you, a lot of times they just keep on walking. Another thing that is always so surprising to me is how in the US, some things are so much more expensive than in Italy and vice versa. For example, I went to T-Mobile with my mom a few days ago because I needed to add a function that allows me to call Italy from the United States. And when we looked at how much my mom pays for 3 lines on T-Mobile, I was shocked. Because in Italy, for unlimited data plan, meaning I have unlimited amount of internet, free calls to Europe, US, Canada, etc., I pay 10 euros per month, which is, I would say, about, depending on the rate, $12 per month. These kind of plans do not exist in the United States. But then you guys are so lucky when it comes to paying for electricity and gas, because let me tell you, Italians pay so much for electricity and gas. If you love air conditioning, and I know most of you do, and you love living it at night or throughout the day, by the end of the month, you will have to decide between going on a weekend getaway or paying your bill, electricity bill, because trust me, it's going to be extremely expensive. And all the Italians are hyper aware when it comes to the usage of electricity and gas. And that is the reason why they don't turn on the heat that much. And that is also the reason when a lot of you travel to Italy and complain that the aircon at your Airbnb or in a store or in a museum wasn't working properly, it is because Italians do not want to pay thousands of dollars for their monthly electric bill. Another reason why they don't really believe in air conditioning is because Italians believe that if a cold air is blowing at you, you're destined to get sick. And I know this might be so surprising to a lot of Americans, but even at the gyms, the temperature is completely different from the gyms in the United States. When I went to my favorite gym in New York yesterday, as soon as I walked in, because I'm not used to this kind of temperatures anymore, I was like, oh, I was frozen. I forgot what it feels like. And I'm sure you would experience the opposite shock if you went to the gym in Italy, because not only the temperature is completely different, you would also see a lot of Italian men and women wearing a scarf around their neck for the first 5 to 10 minutes of their workout until they feel like they warmed up enough, and then they take them off. Yes, I know it's almost shocking to hear that wearing a scarf in the gym, but in Italy that would be absolutely normal. So at the end of the day, no country is perfect. You have to find the place that resonates with you the most. For me, I fell in love with Italy many years ago, and I just had to make it my home. But there are so many things that I appreciate about US, and forever I will be a proud American. And of course, I would love to know which culture, which country resonates with you. Leave me a comment down below, let me know. Thank you so much for tuning in into today's episode. And if you want more of Stay Fabulous series, please remember to smack that subscribe button, as well as follow and share with your friends and family. Remember that this podcast is on every podcast platform. So if you prefer to hear this episode instead of just watching me on YouTube, find me on Spotify, find me on iTunes, find me everywhere. Thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to our next chat, our next episode. And until then, and always, stay fabulous.